Okay, we don't do celebrations and.
The Lindbergh Schools Board of Education meeting 1558 is now called to order. Dr. Lake, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we do. We need to add a human resource portion. We're scheduled to do that in the workshop tonight. It's a district safety update, and it'll be agenda item 8.02 under special reports. As I said, as we didn't have time to complete that in the workshop tonight.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the addition of HR safety update to item 8.02?
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Megan, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now we'll stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no 4.0 special recognitions or resolutions this evening, so we will move to 6.0 citizen communication regarding agenda items, and we have none this evening either. So we move to 7.0 communication, 7.01 calendar events. Megan? Sorry, we got there quickly.
I'm ready. Okay, so some of the district events for this month are that the district offices remain closed on Fridays through July. August 8th through 11th is Lindbergh Teacher Institute. The Board of Education Finance Committee will meet August 16th. On August 17th and 18th, we have an all-staff orientation, professional learning, and work day. August 18th, also, we're back here for our regular board meeting. And mark your calendars, big day, first day of school, Tuesday, August 23rd, which is almost a month away. So I will be under a rock at that time.
Thank you. Report of meetings, any state or other meetings or parent group meetings this past month? It's usually slow in the summer, but
I just want to talk about some fun stuff, and Beth isn't here, so somebody may have to help me. But I'm sure we all read about cubes in space. And so our seniors, high school, they're juniors now, but when they tried, it was in middle school, to send 3D cubes up into space. And so that's, I listened to the video today, and so we don't have results yet if their cubes made it back in one piece or not. But it was so cute to watch the students. They were so serious about their investigations and their testing. And that's just, I think, a tribute to our teachers and staff and how much love they put into that program. And then we have the Envirothon that was featured in the call, and that was really neat too. And that had 5 of our students who have graduated, but this is a competition, and they did presentations around the work of soil, land use, aquatics, ecology, forestry, wildlife, and current environmental issues. And a shout out to our teacher, Mr. Marquardt, for being the teacher who put that together and takes the students to competitions. They actually competed at the national level. So there's a regional contest, a state, and then a national, and we made it to the national. And then last but not least, do not forget to go into the post and vote for your favorite school. Crestwood, Long, LHS, and Parkway's in there as well. So it was kind of cool to see all that. So I did my voting, so now everyone else gets to do that too. I thought we'd do something fun.
thank you, appreciate that. We have no announcements under 7.03, so back to Megan for a review of upcoming Board of Education meeting agendas.
Great. So like I said before, August 18th, we will be back here at 7 p.m. for our next regular board meeting. The tentative agenda includes an annual designation of compliance officer, safety coordinator, foster care liaison, and homeless coordinator. Also, the readoption of board policy BBFA, and a second reading of any policies presented this evening. Further record reports on the annual security of the board report, and regular business items such as human resources and financial reports. So the Thursday before school starts, we'll be ready.
Thank you. We have no Board of Education member appointments under 7.05, and we will now move to our MSBA board report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MSBA Board Report for the month of July. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the issue of school safety. Creating and maintaining a safe and secure learning environment for our students, teachers, and staff is always a top priority for school board members and administrators, but now has become an even greater focus in the aftermath of the horrific shooting in Uvalde, Texas. MSBA's Center for Education Safety remains an important resource for school districts throughout our state, and now a new national school safety organization will be part of the Missouri School Boards Association. It will be led by John McDonald, a nationally recognized school safety expert who recently retired as the leader of safety and security in the Jefferson County Schools in Colorado, the home of Columbine High School. McDonald, who is moving to Missouri, spoke at MSBA's recent delegate assembly meeting in St. Charles. He said school boards remain on the front lines of protecting children and providing them with a safe learning environment.
If you ask any parent what's most important to them about their child's education, they're going to tell you three things. I want my child safe, I want them happy, and I want them educated. If we do those three things, we have great hope. Not only do we have hope, but we see great results. And we know that a student that feels safe in their environment, a student that feels safe at school, is a better learner. They have higher test scores, better graduation rates. They want to be there and they want to learn. And every child deserves to learn in an environment free from intimidation and abuse and bullying and threats.
McDonald says the new National School Safety Organization under MSBA's umbrella will provide school districts with a variety of resources and guidance to meet the needs of individual districts. He adds the new organization will also provide a critical incident response team that will be available to districts throughout Missouri and throughout the nation. The new president of the Missouri School Boards Association is Ray Murphy, a school board member from the Richards R5 School District, a K-8 school near West Plains. Murphy became MSBA's new president at the recent Igniting Great Ideas Summit in St. Charles after serving as president-elect for the past year. He told board members attending the summit it's important to understand the challenges our schools face right now, but it's also important to celebrate accomplishments.
Oscar Wilde has a great quote, one of my favorites. He said, experience is the best teacher because it gives you the test and then the lesson. And we've learned a lot these last 2 years, and I think we need to celebrate that. Celebrate the things we did well, learn from the things we didn't do good and failed at, and move forward and celebrate those.
MSBA state officers elected during the delegate assembly meeting held at the summit include President-elect Ruth Johnson of the Raymore Peculiar School District and Vice President Patty Quisenberry of the Ozark School District. It's time to review and submit proposed changes to MSBA's advocacy positions. Those position statements express to legislators, policymakers, the public, and the media where MSBA stands on issues like school board elections, charter school expansion, and many, many others. Be a part of this process by reviewing the current positions, discussing them with your fellow school board members, and proposing changes. Delegates will vote on the proposed changes at the Fall Delegate Assembly this November in Kansas City. The deadline to submit new or revised position statements is August 31st. Registration is now open for the 2022 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators to be held November 4th and 5th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature numerous breakout sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, along with a great lineup of general session speakers. You can also register to attend the 2022 Midwest School Safety Summit to be held November 2nd and 3rd in Kansas City. This event is designed to provide information for those who govern and work in K-12 schools, colleges, and universities, as well as law enforcement officials and others working with MSBA member districts. The summit is being held just before the MSBA annual conference to allow entire safety teams, including school board members, superintendents, and central office staff, to attend with school safety staff. The Midwest School Safety Summit is presented as a partnership between MSBA Center for Education Safety and the Safe and Sound Schools organization. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Thank you, Colin. And we will move to Dr. McKinney for special reports, 8.01 cabinet updates, and then 8.02 safety update.
So are we going to go through, which one do you want me to do first? The HR?
HR report, and then we'll do,
Okay,
sorry.
that's okay.
Trying to combine them.
So the safety report, or you want me just to do the committee report?
The committee report and then the safety.
Gotcha, okay, I'm good. So our committee, this won't be long, our committee did not meet this month. July is a very short, very short personnel report. However, we did submit the personnel report to people on the committee, and the questions were asked via email. We'll meet again in August.
So I'm sorry, on my thing, it did not, it said that finance didn't meet, but I believe it did. Oh, okay.
We did not meet in July, but we did share same information we share with them at the board, at the finance committee meeting, and ask if they have questions, they can reach out. So
Okay,
we
thank
do
you.
take July off.
All right, so then back to Dr. McKinney for our edition of 8.02 HR safety update.
Thank you very much. Jamie was going to be here to present with me, but we let her go on and go home. So I'm going to go through some slides. And another key to school safety, obviously, was referred to on the MSBA report. Terrell alluded to it, is the people that we put in front of the kids on a daily basis, teachers and staff. So the presentation I have for you tonight really starts with how do we screen and check the backgrounds of people that are potentially going to be in our schools? And then once they're in our schools, how do we monitor those background checks and get updates and make sure people haven't gotten in trouble with the law or done things like that while they're employees? And then a slide is about how do we train our employees? So our well-trained staff, as Terrell alluded to, is extremely important, and we put our folks through a great deal of training. And then finally, there are some things that we do post-employment to make sure that we're not only keeping our own kids safe, but we're helping keep kids safe that may be in school districts that those employees are going to go on and work in the future. So that's the outline. So if we could go to the next slide. Pre-employment, excuse me. Starts with a basic application. On that application, we give the employee the opportunity to disclose things to us. And it's a lengthy application, but a couple things I would highlight that the applicant would disclose to us. Have you ever had a professional certificate revoked or suspended? Have you ever been convicted of an offense for physical or sexual abuse of a child? Have you ever been charged of child abuse? Have you ever been terminated or asked to resign in lieu of termination from employment in another school? Again, that's a self-disclosure screening. And then as the person advances through the hiring process, our administrators that are on site considering these people as they've moved through the screening process, they've gotten to that point, they will then do their reference checks, and that's usually with another immediate supervisor, principal to principal. And then if they are recommended for hire, then HR goes in and does the background checks that are required by Missouri Statute 162.068. It's known as the mandated disclosure form. It asks for questions. We're required to contact. We cannot offer a contract to somebody that we haven't completed this form on by law, Missouri law. 4 questions that the other districts have to answer. So we have to answer these questions when we get the form from another district. districts are required to answer them for us. That is, was the employee subject of any sexual misconduct investigation? Was the employee dismissed due to sexual misconduct involving a student? Was the employee allowed to resign due to a sexual misconduct investigation? And finally, were there any children's division decisions or findings related to the applicant with regard to sexual misconduct of a student? So those questions must be answered all in the negative, obviously, before we're allowed to offer a contract. We do that, again, for students that are leaving. I'm sorry, for teachers that are leaving us and going on to another school district. We also conduct an FBI background check, which which is a fingerprint background check. It's nationwide, and that enters the person into the RAT Back program, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And we also do a background check with the Family Care Safety Registry through the Department of Health and Senior Services. And we also do a check with the Children's Division of Social Services in the state of Missouri. So the background check process and reference check process is involved, and these things are all done and must be passed before we issue a contract to a person. So oftentimes a principal will say, I'm excited to recommend this person and I want to get them into the board meeting that's coming up in 2 days. Can you get them in front of the board? I want to offer them their contract. We're super excited. I want to announce them to my staff. And we say, well, probably not, because we're going to go through all of these things and connect with all of these people and get all of these reports back before we can go forward and bring a contract to you, the Board of Education. And so that's all pre-hire. Any questions about the pre-employment or onboarding process with regard to background checking our staff? If not, we'll move on to the next slide, and that is the Missouri RAT Back program. So this is a Missouri statute authorized program. It allows school districts to access electronic updates to criminal background checks of current employees. So before the program began back in 2015, an employee technically could be fingerprinted, model citizen, and then while they're in your employ, they maybe things happen that you wouldn't be aware of because you don't go back typically and rerun background checks. It's a one-time thing. So the Missouri Backpack program fills that void. And so once the employee is fingerprinted, they're automatically enrolled into the RAT Back program. And then the district is notified of any employee in the program that is arrested. And it's for any arrest that is above and beyond a traffic citation. When the district is notified and then it's verified that the employee is currently employed with the district, then we get the report of what the arrest is. It's not a conviction record, it's an arrest record, so it doesn't mean immediately that that person is no longer going to be employed with the district. However, it allows us to engage with the employee and talk about the situation and find out what they're going through, and then we take it from there. So it may end up in a separation from the district. It may be that they go through a process and they're not working with us until it's adjudicated. There's a number of things that can happen after that occurs. The process and the roll sheet of people that are on that is updated every 3 years. So every 3 years we have to go through and we have to make sure everybody that's on our list is still employed with us, and if they're not, then we take them off our list. So we're no longer receiving notifications of people that aren't employed by us, and secondly, it re-ups the people that are in the organization. Any questions about RAT Back?
I have one. Is this a pretty standard program that all school districts use?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it is. We were an early adopter, but I think at this point, most districts that I'm aware of are enrolled in the RAT Back program. Yes. And then the next slide, staff training. So we, of course, do a great deal of training with our staff. What you see here, and I won't read all of these things, but this is online mandatory training. So every employee gets at least this baseline of mandatory training topics. And you can see that, and this is provided to us through a vendor called Vector Solutions. Each of these bullet points are pieces that are either required training by law, state statute, or recommended by our legal services through our insurance company. So this is it's an undertaking. There are a few school employees here that I'm sure go through this each year, and it's you know, 2.5 hours if you were to sit down and do it all in one setting. These are computer modules that require a test after each session. Some of them, for instance, the Smarter Adults, Safer Children, which is a sexual misconduct staff to student reporting module. It's about a 45-minute video with tests in the middle, so you can't just turn this thing on and walk away. You have to be engaged, you have to watch it, then you take a test in the middle, and then it furthers the video. So they are also tailored to what type of employee group you're in. So for instance, if you see bloodborne pathogen exposure prevention, the custodial staff and the nursing staff get a full 45-minute program on that, whereas teachers get a 45-minute program every few years and then get a refresher. So it is tailored to the employee group. So some people get different versions of the presentations than other, which is great. This is the baseline. So our employee groups have meetings just Monday. You'll read in your Thursday packet this week an overview. Just Monday, the facilities and grounds and maintenance departments all came here, and they had their back to school meeting. And many of these topics were reviewed again in person, above and beyond the baseline here that they get online. They take it online, but also these topics were touched on again, things that we want to focus on. It's a little different each year depending on what maybe has been recently discussed, but it gives us another opportunity. So this professional learning is a little bit like steeping, and you know, employees are steeped in the professional learning here, so it's not just a one-shot deal. They see this multiple times throughout their not only career, but then throughout each year of their career. Any questions about the trainings that we do regarding while the staff is here?
Yeah, I guess I do see two things that are missing, because mine equaled 4 hours with Matt and not 2.5. But these two are quick and easy. So I would love to see us do, and it's not a video training, it's not a test thing, it's just our board policy on technology use. And includes computer use. It includes interesting things too about, you know, not selling things. So not even having an email come if you're a Pampered Chef person, you know, on the outside. Yeah.
We do that one.
Yeah. It's not on there, or it's just
Not on
on
that
this slide?
It's just not in this particular program. So like, for instance, we did
Okay.
a cybersecurity one back in April.
Yeah.
So there are some that are direct person-to-person trainings that are embedded throughout professional learning over the course of faculty meetings during the
Okay,
year. And then
okay.
these are the ones that exist
Yeah.
specifically within Vector.
Because those they added it to Vector.
Yep.
And it was a part of that. So
So-
they added their own, and it wasn't a Vector video, it was just particularly to a district. So it was that one. And then there was like a mini 4E one that just was covered, so a PowerPoint, if you will, of not having food in classrooms or something, like and they added it to those trainings.
Well, in a significant number of these, like for instance, protection of pupil rights. Like if you remember back to a year ago, we were having lots of conversations about PPRA. That's a district-created video that we then added to Vector. So some of them go within
Perfect, yes.
within the system that are either created by Vector or created by Teaching and Learning, and then others are done separately outside of the system.
But the technology ones mentioned are presented to the staff. It's just they come from Dominic's department, not through Vector.
Got it.
Because that actually came up today in our meeting this
We did it
morning.
all online, because we were sitting at home doing it, it was a long thing.
Yeah, but it wasn't part of Vector, right? But good points, and yes, those are addressed, which is.
And the other thing I was just questioning, because it's not on here, and it wouldn't be because it's not mandatory, there were some awesome additional trainings that you could take on your own. Just because we had purchased Vector, that down below, it's like you could train on these, but then you could also, peruse if you want to do additional learning on some other things. For example, one of them was dyslexia, and it was just something, again, we cover it during PD and staff meetings, but it was some
Yeah.
great stuff.
Yeah, Vector's been a good program, and one thing that we've done this year because of the lengthiness of it is our staff asked if, typically we would present this to them at the beginning of the school year and they'd have till, Halloween to finish. And this year they asked if we could move it all forward. So, and we reminded them when we sent this email out that they asked for this, our teachers and employees did, but we pushed it out this year on July 5th. And with a carefully worded email that said, "Don't forget, you asked for this on July 5th." So, but a lot of people didn't want to have to deal with it at the beginning of school because it's a bit cumbersome. But it's our baseline. It's not where the training ends. It's everybody gets this, and then we build on top of that. At the bottom bullet, it's kind of hard to see, but HR Innovations Process Audit, this is something we're doing this year, first time, at least since I've been in Human Resources, that we've had an HR process audit. It's something that we chose to do. We brought in, the company is called HR Innovations. The person that runs it, his name is Ken Rossick. He's a former countywide Human Resources officer, and we've met with him already. He comes in, and I'd say it's a little bit like the process audit that finance goes through. They come in and they say, we want to see these things, we want to spot check these things, give us these records. So we've already gone through the process of providing him the records that he's asked for. He will also be back one day next week to look through some investigation files that I'm not able to give him access to, other than he can come and sit and look at them with us in the room. But we think this is going to be a great way for us to, number one, we hope it's affirming in that he tells us, hey, you guys are covering your bases, you're doing a lot of great things, but we fully expect that we'll learn something from it as well, and he'll have suggestions on things we can do to shore up some areas if we do have any holes in our processes. So interesting process to this point. With our first meeting with him, it's been very positive. And then finally, the next slide, post-employment. This is something that people may not think about, but exiting employees is an important process. Employees that are our staff, they have access to a lot of important and confidential data, which student information, other staff information if they're in human resources or finance, for instance. So we have quite an exit process for people who are leaving. And it has to do with turning things in, as simple as physical keys. We've got to collect those things, curriculum materials, shutting down access to things like student information system, our Google Drive, their access to talent ed records if they're in the human resources department, those kinds of things. Key card access being deactivated. These are all key safety components, is when someone walks out the door, they don't just say goodbye and walk out with a big ring full of keys. And then there is, again, to repeat the Missouri State Statute 162068, where we have to keep a file on anyone that we would have to say yes to that disclosure. When someone goes on to another district, whether it's public or private, we have a list of anyone that would be on, we would need to say no to as they move forward. So it really starts from pre-employment, training during employment, all the way through after the person leaves us. There's a lot of safety procedures and protocols in place. Happy to answer any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney. We'll move to action items by consent. We have action items by consent 9.01 to 9.08. Would anyone like to remove any of these for individual consideration? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve consent items 9.01 to 9.08? Motion by Julia?
Second.
Second by Matt. Any questions?
I do not have a question, But I know under the book purchases for Barnes & Noble, there's a lot of books in there that have been discussed before by our community. And so I just wanted to, for those of you that may not have middle school students, last year we received an email from the English teacher, and it listed the books that were being read in the classroom. It gave us links to reviews. It gave us information about those books, how they're rated, and if we wanted to opt out of those, that we certainly could. So I just wanted to bring that point up for everyone to know that there's a really great opt-out process for middle school. And I know we also have one for high school as well.
Thank you. So we have our motion. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We will move to 10.0 individual action items. We have one this evening. 10.01 approval of BSI guaranteed maximum price GMP amendment gifted learning center project. Joelle.
I got it.
Okay.
So what you have before you is just a reminder that the Gifted Center, or our PEGS program, is at Kennerly, and then our LEAP is at Sparing Middle School. So PEGS has been moved around this district for quite some time, and so we started this conversation around getting them a permanent home at some point, and I will give Ms. Watts the glory here on this idea of when we were redesigning the high school. We were trying to figure out what to do with the existing library. It's a unique structure. We didn't want to knock it down, so how about a gifted center? And so here we are. So through this, I will say, Joelle, and I will give a public shout out to BSI and Steve Shiragi. They have sharpened their pencil, and Perkins and Will and Honer, our local architect firm here, have sharpened their pencils to find every dollar, because as everyone knows right now, construction prices and costs and inflation is through the roof. And so originally this came in at about a $6.5 million, which is significantly over where we had projected. We have brought it back down to 5.5. Back in, was it February, Joelle? I think you had shared that it was 5.6 minus architect fees. So here's the thing, prices are not gonna go down. They may begin to stabilize, but they're not gonna, everybody we talk to in the industry is like, we're not even there yet on the stabilization. So we think this is the responsible thing to do, is to go ahead and move forward with this project. And so just know there's been a lot of value engineering in this conversations to get this at a manageable number. Questions?
Do I have a motion to approve the BSI GMP Amendment Number 1 in the amount of $5,543,293 for Lindbergh Gifted Center located on Lindbergh High School campus, funded from 2022 certificates of participation, and authorize the administration to negotiate and enter into a contract for the same as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kathy, second by Christie. Any other questions? I can. Ready? Any other questions? No. We'll move to our vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We have two for the record reports this evening: Career and Technical Education Program Evaluation and Transportation Program Evaluation. You can review both of these reports and contact cabinet members with any questions. We also have 11.02 other reports, redistricting of future homes, first reading, and Dr. McKinney.
All right, thank you. As you're all very well aware, McBride Homes is developing the former Crestwood Mall site, and 81 lots will be available for single-family homes, and those lots are now being sold. And so it won't be long before we'll have families in those homes, and we'll have those kiddos coming to us here in Lindbergh schools. Last year, in anticipation of this development, we gave a report on classroom space at our elementary schools to the Facilities Board Advisory Committee. Tonight, on the next slide, please, Colin, have for you two buildings that we're going to focus on. In the materials is actually a map like this for every elementary school, actually every school, middle, except for high school, because that's new, but all the other schools, there's a map like this, but I want to focus on 2 schools tonight. And the space study that you see here, as you look at a map of Crestwood Elementary School, shows some data. And what we do when we look at these is we look at the buildings in terms of classroom spaces. So they may have a closet, or they may have a teacher's lounge, or they may have a half an office of spaces that are more than what you see on here, but they're not available classroom spaces. So when we look at these maps, as far as spaces, we look for spaces available for classrooms, and then in yellow are spaces that could be captured. So currently, there's programming involved in those rooms. They may have a special school district classroom. They may be using it for an extra PE space for exercise and workout. But in case of any kind of crowding, we could capture those spaces back for classrooms. And so you can see at Crestwood, right now, their enrollment is 467 students. They have 22 grade level sections, so those are classroom sections. This is a little bit out of date because just 2 weeks ago, we added a section at Crestwood Elementary School, so they actually have 23 now, so these numbers are all going to change a little bit. They've gotten bigger. We identified 2 spaces that could be captured for a classroom. You can see the 2 yellow squares there. One of those we've moved into, or will at the start of next school year. It puts them at 91% of their available capacity. So the school design capacity for classrooms is 511 students. I can tell you now, with that extra classroom being taken, that 91%, that number will go up the next time you see this slide. So not a lot of room at Crestwood. Currently, the dirt that is being built on at the former Crestwood Mall lot is, it's zoned for Crestwood Elementary School. So that's a bit of a problem. So if we could move on to the next slide, Colin, we'll look at Sappington Elementary School. Now, Sappington is going to be on 2 different slides because there are 2 stories at Sappington that we can have access to, but just on this slide to look at the current data. So they've got an enrollment of just over 500 students. Currently, they're using 24 classroom spaces. They are designed, that building is designed for 32 classroom spaces and could hold 700 students. And so Sappington really is, at this point, underutilized and is using about 72% of capturable spaces. If you would go to the next slide, Colin, you can see a lot more of that floor has most of the classrooms. I can tell you that if Dr. Keisha Parker is watching this right now, she's going to tell me that she's using every bit of that space, and I know that she is. I've walked through this building with her to make this map. However, these are things that we could capture back from how Keisha is currently using those, and they're doing great stuff over there. So, however, you can see from this map that we have space at Sappington. I didn't include a map of Long Elementary School. They're also a border of the Crestwood Mall site. Long is in worse shape than Crestwood. They're actually right now at 95% classroom space used and projected to grow without any new neighborhoods. They're projected to grow in our enrollment projections from our demographic report. So Long Elementary School and Crestwood, the 2 in proximity to this neighborhood, really don't have room at this time. And so if you could go to the next slide, what the facilities group, after talking them through this, proposes that we zone this at Sappington. Now you can see the color coding here. Sappington is the purple. In the circle up there at the top is the Crestwood Mall site where the 81 homes will go. It's hard to see from here, but it has also been colored purple for Sappington. So you can see that that would be, they would be an island zoned in with Sappington so we can get those kiddos into a school that has room without a great deal of disruption to our other school communities. So the recommendation is to zone that new neighborhood for Sappington Elementary School. Once someone has purchased a lot and has a building contract, they can come to Lindbergh, and that can be their documentation that they're going to enroll at Sappington, and they can begin their what will be a great elementary time at Sappington Elementary School.
So just real quick with that, this recommendation goes along and supports what our updated demographic study said, that we were going to continue to grow the next 10 years, and we probably have enough space to do some things. So this is an example of that. So some other things, I'll just kind of go ahead and put it out there that, you know, we have certain neighborhoods that go to certain schools, grandfathering families into those schools, but as new families come into a certain neighborhood, they may, where we begin to start to have space, maybe we need to look at doing that. So, you know, this is I think a good way to be creative with utilizing the space that you have without disrupting, like Brian said, and doing a complete redistricting and pulling, you know, a little bit along out of there and shifting to Crestwood. This is just, this boundarying dirt before families show up is a good strategy to do. And I would, you know, that's why we're bringing you this recommendation. So, and the Facility Planning Board Advisory Committee felt the same way, that this would be a good use of the space. And when you're a district our size, it's not huge mileage-wise, you know, yeah, they're driving by long or whatever, but it's really not that far. That neighborhood is not that far from Sappington. It's right there.
So we just have this for a first reading and your consideration and questions tonight, and then we'll bring this back for approval at the August meeting.
Is this a proposed permanent solution, or is this really viewed more as temporary until at some point there has to be a redistricting anyway?
Well, yes, so this is, I mean, eventually it could, or it could always live there. So, I mean, at some point, you know, and this will be part of, as we plan for that next bond, using our updated demographic study, where might we need to put an addition on? So at Crestwood, if we think Crestwood, or like Brian said, long as at 95% and is showing to grow. We have Kennerly that is here and is gonna dip, but then in like 4 years, it's gonna go like this again. So we just, these will be strategic kinds of conversations. It could be, we could maybe never do a boundary change as the facility, the demographic study, the updated one said, that we have space to handle our growth. It's just, how do we redistrict and reposition, or things like grandfathering this neighborhood, and if you don't have a break, once you have a break in elementary enrollment, then you would have to go to that new school, like at Dressel. So like, we have a family going to Dressel right now, and they have a fifth grader, and that fifth grader then goes on to middle school, but you have a preschooler, and then 2 years later, it becomes a kindergartner. Well, then you might have to go to Sappington if we've changed that neighborhood to Sappington. There's ways to manage this without being a total, you draw this line here, and allow it to naturally redistrict itself, so, through neighborhoods. So that would probably be some of our conversations. Or if you want to have those fun meetings and draw lines and move neighborhoods, we can also do that too. So we have a plan to manage our growth without being disruptive. So yeah, so you bet.
Thank you. We'll move to 11.03, review of board policies. We have a first reading of policies DLCA and DGA. Please review each and contact Dr. McKinney or Joelle with any questions prior to the next meeting when we will be seeking approval. There are no citizen communication comments regarding non-agenda items, so we will move to 13.0 recess, which we already conducted our executive session, so there is no need, and we will move to 15.0 adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn board meeting 1558?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Mike, second by Megan. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Board meeting 1558 is adjourned.